everyone. I am Miss Maka.
And I am Mr. Daryl. Today we have a very special episode, don't we, Miss Maka?
Oh yes, Mr. Daryl, it's Christmas time, and of course we have a special episode for you.
By a very special British author, Charles Dickens.
Yes, and as you saw from the video, you can say that this is a story about magic, just as magical as the day itself.
Santa has come early today. I feel magic in the air today.
Of course, we can all feel that, and I do hope that you feel it too.
This is a classic story, possibly the first story that set the Christmas legend, that set a lot of the traditions as well.
Yes, we will look at it a bit later, but firstly, let's start with the vocabulary that we need today.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the first word. As you can see, the first word is a carol. It's a noun, carol, carol. And that is a traditional song that is often sung at Christmas time.
In Georgian, it is Sashobo Simbrera.
Our next word is also a noun, and it is miser, miser, a miser. This is a person who is quite selfish and doesn't really care about other people and collects either wealth or money and stuff for himself.
Harbi.
Our next word is an adjective, selfish, selfish. Something you don't want to be at Christmas time. These are people who are only concerned about their own well-being, about themselves.
Egoisti.
Our next word is a noun, humbug. This might be a bit unusual for our listeners. Humbug, humbug. And this is when something is dishonest or slightly nonsensical, doesn't make any sense.
And yes, you will find this word in the story a lot of times. So this is sisulele, tvalt maktova.
Our next word is a verb, to re-evaluate, to re-evaluate. And this is when you change your mind on something, you change your first opinion and you develop a new opinion on something.
Gadapaseba.
Our next word is a verb, to redeem, to redeem. This is when you make up for something that you've done in the past, some mistake or something that you now correct somehow.
Gamosridwa.
Our next word is afterlife. It's a noun, afterlife. Now this is life after death. It can be heaven or it can be hell.
Yes, im kverniuri. Saikio tschobreba. Okay, Mr. Daryl, thank you very much. Now I think it's time for our first question. So in the story, people eat turkey to celebrate Christmas. What are some traditional Georgian Christmas dishes?
One of the famous dishes in Georgia is kozinaki, which is made of honey and nuts.
Oh, thank you very much, and I love this dish. What about you, Mr. Daryl?
That does sound delicious, and I think I'd like to try it at your house.
Okay, but I cannot prepare it. Maybe my mother will help.
Great.
Thank you very much. So, let's start with the writer, the creator of this story, Charles Dickens, who was born in 1812 and died in 1870. He was a literary genius who created some of the most famous moments in English literature, one of which and many of which are described in this story.
It's a commentary on social class in Victorian era England. And it's about the story of a rich man who doesn't care about the poor people and eventually changes his mind on it.
Yes, and this book was so popular that Charles Dickens toured in many places in England and talked and gave lots of public speakings about the Christmas, about this book. So I think that if he was alive now, he would definitely give a very interesting public speech about Christmas.
I agree. And there's a quality about the book. It's very theatrical. It's very, very showy, and it lends itself to TV, theater, songs, musicals, and so on. So it has been transformed many times into all of those formats.
Yeah, one example we gave you from the very beginning of our today's program.
Yes, we did. And now we have a second question for our audience. The question is, what is a popular Georgian Christmas tradition?
Popular Christmas tradition is to light a candle in front of all windows in our houses.
Wow, that would look very beautiful, I think, Ms. Maka.
Exactly. If you see it, it's really, really beautiful.
Well, let's move on now to a summary, I think, of the book.
Yes, we will tell you shortly what is the story about. A Christmas Carol tells the redemption story of old Ebenezer Scrooge, who transforms from a terribly selfish and cold-hearted man into a generous and caring person.
He doesn't do this on his own, though. He needs some help, and he has 4 ghosts that visit him after he proves himself to be a selfish, cruel man, and he obviously needs some help.
Mr. Gerald, what do you think? Which of those ghosts would be or will be the most dangerous one?
I think the ghosts of Christmas future, because the future is unknown, and it would be the most fearsome for me.
Exactly, fear of the unknown. First, he is visited by the ghost of his former partner, business partner, who was also a greedy and selfish man in his lifetime.
And after that ghost came 3 ghosts in succession, one after the other. The ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future.
Yes, and all those 3 spirits show Scrooge some moments from his life, and he actually regrets why he has become such a greedy man, and he does not really help others in the story. And he promises to change before it's too late for redemption.
Indeed, and in the end, we see him as a changed man. He's nice to people, he gives money to people, and he helps people by the end.
Yes, and he is truly transformed by the end of the story, and he lives out the rest of his life surrounded by love and happiness.
What a beautiful story.
Yeah, it is. And now it is time for the next question from the summary part, right? What do you think is the main message of this classic story?
I think the main message of this story is the theme of generosity and that everyone has an opportunity to become a better person.
Yeah, exactly. There is always way out.
And that might be why the story is so popular. It's a great message to keep telling our kids every generation.
Yes, definitely.
I think it's time to have a look at some of the characters, Ms. Maka. Let's move straight to the main man himself, Ebenezer Scrooge. He's obviously our protagonist. He is the man that the story is built around. He's an old miser at the beginning. He doesn't really care about people. He cares about money. He wants to collect everything for himself. He doesn't share with anyone. And it takes a supernatural event to turn him over and make him care about people. Basically, the message is, it's never too late to change. He's an old man by the end, but he changes.
Yes, but we can't say that our next character is as lucky as your character that you described right now. Our next character is Jacob Marley, the first ghost that Ebenezer Scrooge actually sees. He was a former business partner of Ebenezer. Also, he was a very selfish and greedy man, cursed to wander the earth with heavy chains made of the items that represents his love of wealth. He actually warns Ebenezer that he will be doomed to an even worse afterlife if he does not change his attitude, his lifestyle.
Well done. We've got to move to the ghosts now, and they are, in their own way, main characters in this book as well, important characters. First off, the ghost of Christmas Past. He is the ghost that comes in and shows Scrooge his past, when he was warmer, when he had more love in his life. And he also shows him the regrets that he has built up over a lifetime. And a lot of sad moments as well. So we see Scrooge has got a bit of a sad and lonely life behind him.
Yes, and our next character, and you can also see in the movie and in the book, is also one of the most terrifying one. This is the ghost of Christmas Present. He takes Scrooge around London, where people are celebrating Christmas and they are happy. So different from Scrooge himself, because he decided to spend Christmas alone, not to help others and not to celebrate this magical day. It also warns Scrooge to change his selfish attitude.
Very good. Let's move to the last character now, the ghost of Christmas Future. And this ghost shows Scrooge his future, and he shows him his funeral. He's died. And he shows him the funeral where people gather to talk about his memory. And it shocks Scrooge greatly to see that people are happy that he died. And that makes him change himself something in his heart.
Oh yes, Mr. Darrell, I also think that this is the most interesting, and this is the turning point for Mr. Scrooge.
Yes, very good. I'd like to ask our audience now this question. You've heard some of the characters we've talked about. Which of these three ghosts do you think had the biggest effect on Ebenezer Scrooge?
I think the ghost of Christmas Future had the biggest effect because he showed Scrooge his own death and what would happen if he didn't change himself. And this affects person more than anything else. And the first two only showed about background of history.
Very good answer. Ms. Maka, we'd probably all change the way we behave if we could see our own future.
Definitely, of course. But I wouldn't say that I want to see it.
You want to leave it as a surprise, you mean?
Exactly.
Very good.
Okay, now it is time for the setting of the story. Firstly, let's talk about when the story happened. This is Christmas Eve, Victorian era. This is Dickens's own time. This book celebrates getting back to old traditions like caroling, while also popularizing new ones. In the story, you can say that it is the first time Christmas trees are put inside the houses. So we can say that this book started a new and very popular tradition of Christmas trees.
For that reason alone, it's hugely important.
Of course, definitely.
And the Christmas setting of love, kindness, and so on, I think it's there to show even more strongly how Scrooge is a lot more cruel for the purposes of the story.
Thank you very much. But where this story happens? The story happens in London, England. So London represents the economic and business side of other big cities in England. And this setting was chosen to show the parallels to Scrooge's initial cold, business-like personality.
Christmas used to be more of a countryside celebration, and this book actually, for the first time, kind of pushed it as a city celebration. And this book, in fact, made it become more popular in cities as opposed to the countryside. So that's another interesting part.
Exactly. And maybe at first we will see that London is a bit cold city in the book. As we said, it's more concentrated on businesses and economic growth. Later, we can, looking closer, we see the warmth of the city of London, which represents the change of the personality, Scrooge's personality as well.
Very good. Now, should we move on to the main themes?
Yeah, what are the main messages from the book?
Obviously, there's a lot of messages in this book, but the ones that we focused on are transformation of a person and redemption as well. Now, as you know, at first, Scrooge is a two-dimensional character. He's a very simple person. He cares about money, and he doesn't care about anything else. And his only motivation is saving money. But through the transformative process of this magical Christmas night, he's forced to face his past and confront emotions that he had hid away from himself.
Yeah, when we read this Christmas novella, we have to think about the Christian idea of redemption, which goes like this, that even the worst sinners may become good men. So, just as we see our main character, Scrooge, starts off terrible, but he redeems himself through the help of three ghosts, and finally he saves his soul.
Very good. The other theme in this story as well, connected to redemption, is forgiveness. And we see that Scrooge is forgiven. This character in the novel is forgiven for his past actions and behaviors. And one of the things we learn is that it's never too late to change. And as well, you shouldn't be afraid to change. You can always be forgiven.
This is a very hopeful story, right?
Indeed. We have a question for the audience.
Yeah, so we have read many Christmas stories, but this story gained a lot of popularity. So why did it find such great popularity? What do you think?
First of all, it found popularity because it has a magic in the air.
Excellent, yeah, and I think that's the magic of Christmas as well. We all want to believe in something, and Christmas expresses that really well.
Of course, and this is a day where you can think about changing yourself, something that you don't like.
Yes, very well said. I think it's time to maybe wrap up everything now, Ms. Maka.
Yes. So, of course, we started with the writer, Charles Dickens, a great English writer.
We explained a bit of the summary of the story, which, of course, you know, is about a mean old man who learns to forgive himself and becomes redeemed.
And then we talked about the characters. This was Scrooge, his former partner, and the three ghosts that actually really helped him.
Very good. And of course, we talked about the setting, which was in Victorian era London, and the time, Christmas Eve, December 24th.
And the main message from the book that we have chosen for you was transformation and redemption.
Great. Ms. Maka, I think we've got time for one more question.
Yes, of course.
I'd like to ask it. Well, what are three common New Year's resolutions that people make usually?
Well, we're all used to familiar phrases which are I will work harder, I'll work more, and I'll help others I'll just volunteer others. But the actual answer is kind of different. It's a bit of a cliche to say that I'll work harder next year. The actual thing, whether you agree with me or not, is that you should make changes, whether it's positive or negative. You should make changes because the world is set in a way that changes happen everywhere. They occur every time, and that is how we live. And if you don't keep up with changes, you will be frozen in a snapshot of time, which is more painful than ever. So just make changes.
Wow, excellent answer.
Okay, Mr. Daryl, what's your New Year's resolution?
Oh, I haven't even thought about it, but let's see. If I were to choose a New Year's resolution, maybe work out, maybe exercise a lot more.
Of course, yes. And also, we could recommend to our audience here or from the TV that read more. This will be our recommendation. And for the Christmas time, of course, we can't recommend a better book than A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens.
Well said, Ms. Maka. What about yourself, your resolution?
I would agree with our student, one of our students today, and I will just make a positive change in my, I don't know, like in my working schedule maybe or something, I don't know, but I will change something definitely for the new year.
Well said.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is it for today. Merry Christmas to you all. Wish you all the best of life and spend more time with family and lovely people.
Yes, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'd like to say, we really enjoyed the homework assignments that you sent in. And it was a special treat in the year 2020 for myself and for Ms. Maka.
Of course. Thank you very much. Goodbye.